Want to better understand yourself, others, and the best path for your life? Welcome to Authentic Living, podcast for a better life. The podcast where we delve into life themes and how learning who you authentically are can change your entire life. Here are your hosts, John Boris and Kim Ely.
Hi. So welcome back. You are here with me, Kim Ely, and your awesome co-host, John Boris.
Hello.
Hello. And John, this is really a subject that is, I'm going to say, dear to my heart. So today we are talking about having the courage to be who you really are. And boy, it's easier said than done, right?
That's for sure. 100% of my clients come to me because they've been distracted in life by well-meaning friends, relatives, parents trying to guide their future. And they start as early as 5 years old. We've all done it. We'd say to a 5-year-old, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Right.
It's one thing to have those people start thinking about it as an idea, but they have no clue.
Right.
And this is what starts the problem.
Right. So people are well-meaning. That I think when they ask little kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know, I think it's probably fun for the adults. It's probably, this is going to sound silly, an icebreaker for adults, for little kids, like,
Sure,
kind of like, what do you do in school? You know, what would you like to be when you grow up? But a little kid doesn't know.
Not at all. But something mysterious happens. So the question I had is, how are children able to immediately understand or go through the process of finding what they like and they dislike? How does that happen? Because we know that not all children like or dislike the same thing. And yet they can do that. So it's not just, I don't like the cold or I don't like the heat, but it also encompasses their interests, their awareness, what they're disinterested in, and their choices start to follow patterns. And these patterns set up the next choice, and that turns into patterns of preference.
Right.
So it even goes to the point that some children like to be alone, other children like to be around other children. Some children like to do puzzles. Others rather go play in the backyard. But no one has to teach them that. No one tells them that. No one tells them what they like. Or what I like is the studies have to do with on pretense. Children pretend, for example, that a banana is a phone. Right?
Yes.
And I remember my parents got a washing machine that came in a huge box. And so what I had to do was cut the flaps off and start putting in windows, right? And a door and an open, and I had a fort.
There we go.
Where'd it come from? No one taught me that. With all children, it's the same. It comes from the innate capacities that we are given on a genetic level. This is very important, John, a genetic level. We are given the faculties of what it is to be human. Then what happens is we experiment with likes and dislikes, and we discover more and more this desire that we have to want things.
To want things.
See, it's very different than I say, what do you want? You tell me. And I could say, oh, why do you want it? You could tell me that. But then if I ask, why do you have the desire to want that? Then that comes up a big blank. I don't know. I just do.
Okay.
Okay. So where did that come from and what does that mean? It means that you start to developing a sense of self slowly through time, but you're discovering who you are.
Okay. So question for you. When you're talking about we want to want things, what might be an example of that?
For example, why do you want a car?
Oh, I want a car so I can drive to the store and to work.
Okay. So why do you want to drive to the store and to work?
To get groceries and to make money.
Make money. Okay.
Mhm.
Why do you want to make money?
So that I can contribute to our household and have a good life with my husband.
So why do you want that?
Because I love him.
And why?
That wasn't a question.
And
That should have been
why?
a definitive statement.
Yeah, it should be.
I don't know. I just do. I just love him.
So the point is, no matter what series of questions you have,
Hmm.
always end up with, I don't know, I just do.
Okay.
That's
So
the
when you're
point.
saying you want to want things, it's like, I want a car, but what I really want is something undefinable. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll help you a little bit more with that. It comes back to David Hume.
Mhm.
And David Hume, to paraphrase him, he said that logic and reason are the slaves of our passions. What that means is it's our passions that is the driving force. And logic and reason are tools to accompany and find success in achieving what that passion is.
Okay, gotcha.
They're only tools.
So in the case of the car, we want a car, which is logical, but it's ultimately the slave to our passions, meaning I want this to provide love.
Or yeah, I want to just pay my bills. Why? Because I don't want my lights turned out. Why? So what if they turn out? What's the problem? Well, I don't want to live like that. Why? Well, because I don't think I would enjoy myself. Why? I don't know. I just wouldn't.
Right. Okay.
You
There we
always
go.
wind up with that same point. It's just, I don't know why. In fact, some people will look at you like, are you crazy? I've given you all these whys. Another analogy I had was in a course I gave was, people ask, why did the chicken cross the road? And someone says, oh, the story is to get on the other side, explaining that maybe the question has a very simple answer. Okay. But on the other hand, I want to know why it wanted to go across the road, period. Why did it want to cross the road?
Why did it want to cross the road? Ooh, I love that.
See?
That's
So
awesome.
maybe there was a cat on the other side of the road. Maybe his girlfriend was on the other side of the road, or the boyfriend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he or she wanted to just go to a different territory.
Right.
But see, there's always a desire that moves. There has to be a prime mover in philosophy. That much of that discussion is around will. Our will is moving forward.
Gotcha.
And we call it desire, and we call it want, we call it lots of things. But the problem is that you have to dig deeper than just wanting to want. If you want to find out who you really are and how you're motivated.
So let me ask you this. It sounds like you were talking about the process of looking at likes and dislikes.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, we are in a human lab, meaning we all the time are asking ourselves, do I like this? Do I dislike it? That's part of our process for finding ourselves.
Yeah, it's another way of looking at that is, I remember when I began this, I separated out, what does it mean? You say, I am. So there's an I and there's an am.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets back to Rene Descartes, as if there's two aspects of who you are. The I is what you've learned.
Oh.
The am is giving it meaning.
Gotcha.
So in daily life, when we move around or we grab a glass of water or we do anything, we're saying, am I? I am. Am I? Really? Yeah, I am. And we do that constantly. I am. There's a reason, because who you are as an individual consists of clusters of ideas. They're not tangible objects.
Okay.
So that means that you have to keep these clusters in coherence for you to have an identity.
Gotcha. So could this be an example? I am a free spirit.
Okay.
There is no way for me to show somebody like, here's my free spirit. Am I on the right track?
Well, okay, but now you have to define what is a free spirit.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you have a better
What
example?
does it mean to be free? In what capacity are you thinking spirit?
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Free spirit meaning not accepting guidelines that are provided to me. I create my own guidelines.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. And how do you define spirit?
I guess it would be that passion, that thing that
Okay.
carries you, like the chicken that went across
Okay.
the road.
The
It was
chicken.
inspired by passion.
That's right. So you can define that. So where does the concept or the idea of spirit come from?
Oh gosh, it's just part of who you are. It's just, I don't know.
Is spirit mean? Is it mean? Is spirit angry? What's the
Uh,
temperament of spirit?
Oh gosh.
You know
Yeah,
what it
I'm
is.
stumped. Do I?
You know it.
What is it? What is it, John?
Love.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Gotcha. So it would not be mean. It would be
Caring.
caring and loving and supporting.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that gets back to the theme.
Mm-hmm.
So what you really are doing is, when you think of all the things you do, remember to separate what you're doing and who you're being while you do it.
Mm-hmm.
What you're doing is expressing the desire to want a way to express your theme of love.
Ah, gotcha.
So you have to find ways to do that.
Gotcha.
And you do. Now, that is just like an archetype.
Mhm.
It's a guiding form or blueprint. And
Mhm.
now your job is to fill it. So you fill
Okay.
it in the way you feel it should be filled.
Gotcha.
And that's where
So
the freedom comes in.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay. So who you are, who you want to be is who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that is and has to be the primary source of your psychic energy
Mm-hmm.
and your sense of will.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it stems from.
Gotcha.
So it is the compassion that you feel
Mhm.
with others
Mm-hmm.
that has to find a way to express itself through wanting to want.
Okay.
So with that in mind, there's a way to capture that, which we just did. But I do that when I do my assessments, so
Awesome.
that there's many ways you can express this. That's where the
Mhm.
freedom is. On the other hand, it's not about you can do anything you want if that want is not in compliance with who you already are.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So, okay.
So children not only find out what they like and dislike, but you can easily see that children have demands. And they have a sense of that's not fair. And how about the stage where they always ask questions? They want to know, and they want to know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is innate. This is not something taught.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of that, so you can see that this is the seeds, the genetic seeds that start the process of identity formation.
Awesome.
And this work was done by Jean Piaget,
Mm-hmm.
also by James Baldwin. He wrote The Genetic Theory of Reality,
Oh, okay.
being the outcome of genetic logic. Genetic logic. In other words, why or how are people able to be logical? It's genetic.
Right.
It doesn't tell you how to think. It just says there's a structure there.
Right. Interesting.
So we know that floods don't cause the rain,
Right. Right.
but we just know it.
Yeah.
We also understand what space is and time.
Mm-hmm.
We learn it, but we have to have the capacity to be aware of what we can learn.
Right.
So let's say a monkey doesn't have the capacity to learn what God is or not. It can't learn what fair is or not. They just behave.
Right.
So another way to look at this is through an analogy, and I have had several, and I begin with an acorn. An acorn contains the seeds of an oak. Now that acorn is all that oak can possibly be. That's what genetics does. That's their function. But at the same time, it doesn't tell them what it's going to be the future.
Ah,
Because
interesting.
it doesn't know. Just all it's
Right.
given is the very base material components in the seeds And so now if it's planted and it starts to grow and there's a drought, how does that react to drought? How does that react to mold? How does that react to fungus? How does it react to birds going on the leaves, for example? How do the branches move and take shape? Depends on the genetics of the tree itself, but also the wind. Is it a windy area?
Gotcha. So I think I've got it. So an acorn can only become an oak, meaning
Yes,
you can't plant an acorn and have a pine tree. It just doesn't
that's
work
right.
that way.
That's right.
But just because an acorn is an acorn doesn't mean you know the factors that will impact it, like drought or torrential rains, or somebody hangs a birdhouse in the oak at one point and it grows around the tree house or something. I mean, not a tree house, a birdhouse, some external factor. Things will happen to the oak, but the oak is always essentially an oak.
Yeah, but also the change in the oak is in reaction to the environment.
Okay.
And what the environment triggers the capacity of the oak.
Okay.
Okay. It's the same thing with humans. So you are who you are. Now, you could have been born to a family in a monastery, and you would have an extreme religious life, for example, or you volunteered to help during a Thanksgiving event to give out food to people when you were very young and you were very impressed with that. You could have also decided to be a veterinarian. You could have also been a doctor. But the point is that what you do is not the issue. Who you're being while you're doing it.
Oh, that's huge.
Okay. So here's a good example is I had a client come to me who's very good at accounting, and he lived in Utah. The only job he can get was with the IRS. So who he was being was an IRS agent, which he despised, but it's the only job he can get in that capacity.
Right.
But he loved accounting. But at the same time, he was assessing people and giving out penalties and causing them a lot of conflict. Right. That is what the problem was. But he loved accounting. So he quit and went to work for a small business in the area that wasn't open before. And now he's happy. Now he's an accountant and he's working in the capacity that he wants. And who he's being is conforming to who he is, in fact, while he's doing. That's what you're looking for, being and doing. Gotcha. That's why some people say, I love my job, but not what I do, or I love what I do, but not my job.
Right. Oh, that's huge. Okay. Awesome. So this is a good place for us to take a break, but let's continue talking about this.
All right.
After a quick break, John and Kim will be back with more of Authentic Living, podcast for a better life.
Introducing a new podcast series. John Voris Psychology Podcast teaches you how to truly self-actualize and how to live according to your innate design. Psychology and philosophy are the catalysts that generate psychology, which is an independent discipline created by John Voris. Psychology seeks to convert philosophy into actionable living. This series will take you through an enlightening journey of self-discovery as it teaches you how to live according to your authentic design. Come join us as we explore our authentic selves and all that comes along with understanding it. It's time to let go of preconceived notions about life so you can discover what really makes you happy. Subscribe to the podcast right now on your preferred favorite podcast platform.
Welcome back to Authentic Living, podcast for a better life. Here's John Voris and Kim Ely.
Hi, so welcome back. So glad you are joining us for this episode. It's really interesting to find out more about having the courage to be who we are. So John, I really liked the example you were sharing about the gentleman who was an accountant and he worked for the IRS, and then that was not a good fit for him. And then he ended up working for the small business.
Right.
And the reason I like that is because I think sometimes, I'm sure this gentleman was told at some point, you like math, you should be an accountant.
That's right.
And he was like, oh, okay. But he went to the IRS, he was doing accounting, but he was really not happy with that environment,
With who
right?
he's being.
With who he was being.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I have a very silly example, but I think it works as an analogy for this. So when I was dating, been married for 24 years now, so many moons ago when I was still single and I am interested in guys, people would try to set me up with people. And so I remember a friend of mine going, "Oh my gosh, I've got this guy I want to introduce you to." And I'm like, "Well, tell me about him. And what's he like?" And she was like, "What do you need to know? He's a man, you're a woman. You should just get along." And I'm like, "Well, I need more specifics than that. Yes, we're on the right track, but I need more information." So it
That's
kind
right.
of reminds me of that. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. What it is people think that if someone is intelligent, then they should do everything and anything better than most.
Right, right.
Okay. And it doesn't work that way. Another parallel is I think of tools, because a lot of this is intellectual tools. So I'm going to go to a physical tool and I think about a saw, just a hand saw, and think of a ruler. And
Okay.
then we have a Phillips screwdriver and
Okay.
we have a hammer. Okay.
Excellent. And quick
So-
question, what is a Phillips screwdriver like for our
Well, it's a
non-hardware
Phillips
friends?
the head is in a cross.
Thank
There's
you.
a standard, which is just one blade, and then there's
Mhm.
a cross. Okay.
Got it. Okay. Cool.
So, I have taken a saw when I was out, partly building a real shabby shed. Okay. And so I had a saw in my hand and I had to create this board from one wall to the other. It was under 4 feet. So I
Mhm.
didn't have a ruler with me. Tape measure, it was in the garage or something. So I took my
Mhm.
saw and okay, it's 2.5 lengths of the saw. Right? And so I grabbed the board and I went 2.5 lengths of the saw and made my cut and went in there and it was just fine.
Ah,
I've taken a ruler. Some rulers have metal edge, and I've taken that and used it as a screwdriver.
oh.
If there's a screw there and it's just, I need just to untighten it and I don't have one,
Ah.
I don't have my tool with me. So I take it, just crack it open and then see if I can do it with my fingers. If I couldn't, then I'd go get a Phillips screwdriver, for example.
Right.
Then you take a Phillips screwdriver, and I was in the backyard and I had a bag of, I think it was fertilizer, and I had to open it up and I was pulling on the string
Mhm.
and I just couldn't do it. And there was this Phillips screwdriver laying on the ground. So I take the Phillips and I stab the bag.
Oh, gotcha.
And I start pulling on it and it starts to tear.
Right.
And that's enough for my hand to get in there and I open it up. Another is to take like a Phillips screwdriver or a large Phillips screwdriver and use the head as a hammer. I've done that.
You mean like use the handle as a hammer, you mean?
Yeah. These people do that all the time. So another one is I've used the claw part of the hammer to actually tear into paper.
Oh, just
It'll cut paper. Yeah, it'll be
yeah.
shabby, but you'll cut it. The point is that this is like careers, the parallel. Are
Okay.
you a saw? Are you a ruler? Are you a Phillips screwdriver? Are you a hammer?
Uh-huh.
Now, so someone can come along and say, well, you're a saw, but guess what? You can be anything you want to be. So do you want to be a ruler? Hey, that'd be kind of fun. Yeah, I think I'd like to be a ruler. Oh, okay. Go out there and how many saw lengths is this board? And you can do it. You can do it, but should you?
No. Mm-mm.
And what you've done is replace competency, in a sense, with incompetency. You've just
Ooh.
replaced your natural capacities for something that is alien to you,
Oh, wow.
but you can do it.
But you can technically do it.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that's what people do is they're these tools and they have one way of doing something that they were born with so
Mhm.
they could find happiness and satisfaction in life. And that is very seldom mentioned. They'll have courses on you can have as much money as you want. The key is it you that want it? Are you speaking for your parents? How about your friends,
Mhm.
teachers? Every client that I have comes in the door with the same issue. They had a talent or a skill, somebody recognized it and says, oh, well, you understand math, you need to be an accountant.
Right.
Well, that doesn't work that way. When I was younger, I had a good sense of vocabulary.
Mhm.
And so they just said, you should be an attorney. That's got nothing, well, that has something to do with it, but it's so minor compared to the other demands. But I didn't listen. What I did is I looked for any possibility of a talent in that direction. And I found it.
Mhm.
Okay. Just like the hammer can tear through paper.
Right.
You
Right.
can find it,
Right.
but that's not who you are.
Absolutely.
So the whole point is you want to be happy and fulfilled.
Hmm.
And in order to do that, the saw needs to stay a saw and the hammer needs to stay a hammer and understand what that is. And they have a huge responsibility because guess what? The ruler, the saw, and the Phillips are not hammers.
Right. Right.
So here's this hammer and it's doing its job and it can't stop and decide I want to be a saw. This is what people do though.
Right. 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 So, I think that is such an amazing analogy because say we're standing at the hardware store, we look at all the tools, immediately we grasp, the essence of what these tools are, what they are in their fundamental nature. Can you make them do something that they're not
Not designed
as,
to
like you
do.
said? Yeah, exactly. Yes, you can do that. But is it the most effective use for that tool? No, it's not. And yet, your example about, people told you you have great verbal skills, you should be an attorney, John. That's something that you are capable of doing, but is it your best, course
Will it bring
of
you
action?
happiness?
Will
That's
it
the
bring you
question.
happiness?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the answer is no.
No.
So how do you help clients who come to you and are like the accountant or somebody else who's like, oh my gosh, I'm in this job and I freaking hate it, How do you help them?
Well, first of all, I ask them questions. For example, there's two that are very profound and very revealing. One is give me three examples that made you happy. Give me three examples that made you angry. What will happen is I'm not upsetting the whole theory on one question only. This is not a personality profile test.
Right.
What I'm doing is it's holistic. And I'm actually going to place all six answers together, but that's not enough. I'll take those six answers and apply it to other aspects of that person's life. And I will find conformity because they're all tethered to the true authentic identity of the person.
Oh, snap.
So what makes you angry is tethered to what makes you happy.
Right.
Why are you angry? Because something's not making you happy.
So that's why just being good at doing something, like for instance, your example of you have great verbal skills. So that is something that you do, but that is just one aspect of John. That is not the whole entirety of John Voris is fantastic verbal skills. You are a whole person, sir.
Right.
Is that, I think that I kind of had an aha moment about that.
Yes, but they also take that a little further.
Okay.
Maybe, yes, I have certain verbal skills, but that doesn't mean I can write a novel.
Ooh, okay.
That doesn't mean I should be a public speaker, or I should write a novel, or I should be a playwright, or I should write speeches for politicians. So it ends with, what do you do to express who you're being? That's something you have to find out yourself, but you have to do it freely. And you have to do it and be very brave in that direction because you're going to put yourself out there.
Okay.
The real you.
So explain more, if you wouldn't mind, about that bravery. Why does it take courage?
Because everyone else will tell you not to do it. So can you imagine, everyone is unique. So therefore, the power of an individual is found in their uniqueness, not how they conform to other people.
Okay.
Okay. So they need to find their power through their uniqueness, which means that they have to focus on who they are and have the courage to move that forward in the presence of others and be ready for the criticism and still move on.
Is that because we have an innate desire? I think this is for all of us, to want to fit in with others.
Yes, that's exactly right. And we also want to appease parents.
Right. Yeah.
That's a big one. So, for example, my wife was born on a farm in Nebraska, and everyone around her were farmers. No problem. But she was an Army nurse and came back and found out that there is a lot more to life than just being on a farm. And did these other people see what I saw? I don't know, but I don't want to be a farmer.
Right.
And so what she did is had to face the anger of some people in the families, but take the stand of this is who I am. And so what she did was became a nurse, but she went into private practice and she came out to California.
Gotcha.
From Nebraska. And which means that she left her family, and that happens quite often. But she did it in order for her to be who she was being all along.
Absolutely. And so part of her courage included saying to a farming family in which she had been raised, I love you all. And even though you are farmers, I am not a farmer. So by declaring herself as different, by declaring a different path, I think that causes fear in others because they loved her and they were worried about, and also not only worried about her path, like, oh, you're taking an uncertain path. We don't know about anything. I'm being very, simplistic here. We don't know about anything but farming. Am I on the right track?
That's part of it. The other side is she simply wants to express or manifest her identity. And that's the drive that she has to have. And she's not giving up on that.
So the bravery is in standing up and embracing. Is it right?
The other word that's very important here is, it's a deadly word, is expectations. Parents have expectations.
Right.
And so they impose their expectations on others through goodwill, but it still is expressing it. And it's getting back to your dating circumstance. Intelligent person, why can't you be a farmer? Why can't you be an accountant? Why can't you be? Well, the thing is that really it has a historical value because back in the 1800s, people didn't have that kind of choice. And parents thought that, well, here, I've got this job. This farm's been in our family for 4 generations. It's all paid for. It's a job that's set up for you. You don't have to do a thing. Just you've seen what we do. It's hard work, but you just move it forward. And you're going to turn that away? Does that make sense? But then on the other hand, that father or mother came from that era when there wasn't a lot of options. Then the children down the road said, wait a minute. I go work in the city. I can be a dentist. I can be a doctor. I can be this, that, and the other. I could fly planes. Those things were not optional for most people back in the 1800s and early 1900s, because the very rich was able to go to a college and get a degree and be all these things. So that's a whole different world. Now I can be many things, but you're still back to, should you?
That's really, really interesting. It makes me think of something, sometimes people, I think having that awareness of who you are and the courage to be who you are is powerful. Like you're saying, if somebody grows up in a small town, let's say there just isn't an industry. Say you are a marketing director. If you live in a tiny town, well, I guess you still need marketing, but you may only have like one sign in town versus I'm a billboard artist.
How about a realtor? How about a realtor?
Yes, there we go. There we go.
Yeah.
If you're a realtor, you would have more houses to sell if you live in a larger area.
Yeah.
Just by default.
You'd make more commission.
So like a realtor, if you live in a small town, there's only so many houses that will be available
right.
at any one time.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But see, the point is that as time goes on, there's more opportunities for the next generation that the previous generation didn't have.
Right.
And so in the previous generations, they thought, well, you can be anything you want. Well, what is there that I can be? Well, not much.
Ah, gotcha.
So it's expected that you should, if you're a bright person, you should be able to do all these things. And so it's not the issue of can, the issue is, what do you feel you must do? And does it bring you happiness? When you're happy, you're on the track. When you're miserable, you're off the track.
Right. Right.
So why is it that you have feelings of happiness and misery? Why do they occur? Because that is your deep down authentic identity in control.
Your authentic identity is going, I hate this. Don't do this anymore.
Yes, I'll give you an excellent example. One time I owned a delicatessen. Okay?
Yes.
In the San Francisco Bay Area.
Uh-huh.
And I had tripled the income in 4 months.
Woo!
Okay? And the store was packed and the lunch line was out the door.
Woo-hoo!
And I was miserable.
Why?
Because I wasn't being who I was.
Ah.
I could do all those things.
Right.
I could make sandwiches and make change, right? Right? There was a room in the back that I had full of books.
That's John Voris.
It's like, wow, this is what I do, but this is who I'm being. I got to put these two together. And at that point in my life, I couldn't do it. But that was a profound moment when I went in that back and I thought, oh my God, I really see it.
But I would argue having that awareness probably is the first step to happiness, because even though you couldn't make a change at that point, you were aware, I'm miserable, something needs to change.
Yes, but some people are born on the farm and they enjoy being on the farm.
Right.
And they never really feel misery.
Right.
They have complications. Everyone has problems, but they don't have that deep, profound sense of dread.
Right. Ooh.
Because they are in the right place.
Right.
Some people are born with the idea of who they really want to be, and they're accurate.
Yes.
Most of us aren't. We don't have that luxury.
Well, John, we need to wrap up this episode, but this has been huge. So what if somebody is listening and it's resonating with them like a drum and they are like, oh, snap, I need to know who I really am. How can somebody work with you?
Well, first of all, you can contact authentic-systems on the internet. That's my website. The other is I have a book called Discover the Power That Drives Your Personality on Amazon. And send me an email is john@authentic-systems.com. So that's my email and I will answer directly.
Excellent.
And we would start off with a very casual 15-minute conversation to see if it would be a good fit and take it from there.
Excellent. Outstanding. Well, this is an amazing episode and I had several aha moments and I think this is fantastic. So thank you to all our listeners for listening. And please, if you have a question, we would love to hear from you. So thank you so much, John.
Thank you for having me.
This concludes another episode of Authentic Living, podcast for a better life. Thanks for spending time with us. Hope you join us again soon.